past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
There are few places in a driver's bucket list that evoke such motion as Daytona. You may win at Sebring, you may win at Spa, even at Le Mans, but your career's never complete until you get a win here at Daytona. It's going to be even more special for three drivers as they look to close out a season championship. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Scott. Alongside me is Joe Peak. And, Joe, I've got to say this. This is an absolute climactic end to what has already been a fantastic season of World GT Racing, and it is here on the banks of Daytona.
Yeah, it's a perfect place. I mean, this is, like you said, one of the big places for sports car racing where everybody wants to win. So there's that. But then also it's the unpredictability that comes with racing here. This is one where you can't count your rivals out at any point. So finishing up the season here means that they are throwing a real curveball for the drivers.
And of course, throughout the week, the discussion has been on certain parts of the track. We'll talk about that now. We have three championships to decide here today. As you see, Alexander Davidson, who has capitalized on James Boomey's mistakes throughout the season, holds a scant 42-point lead in the Pro Championship. Then you've got Ross McFarlane and Anders Myra not too far away. Michael Evdaka rounds out your top five. Matthias Pirinen, Arthur Thurtle, Dennis Grabowski, Adam Watson, and Harrison Crowther all round out your top 10 10 here in the pro standings. You go to Pro-Am, and it's a little bit further apart between William Guthrie and Aiden Carter. Aiden, in their first season in Pro-Am, really has done quite well in the only Lamborghini here in the championship. Then you've got Tommy Vettel, Michael Gray, and Phil Samways in your top 5. Dickie Simnor, Haikon Ida Linmo, Tom Griffiths, Patrick Faulkner, and Chris Chatterton in your top 10 here. Then you go in Am, where the story is so much different. It's going to be down to the wire, the last lap between Dan McCauley and Ben Altria. A tale of two stories here last time out in Mexico City, with Joe Coffin, Jox Eva, and Jesse Payne Wilkins in your top 5. Adam Hedgecock, Paul Smith, our good friend, in 7th place. Then Ben Bennyworth, Benjamin Gregory, and Brian Loynes all in your top 10 in the standings. You take a look at the Team Pro standings, and well, you do have a little bit of a difference there between WSR Esports and Altitude Freem. 100 points. These have been the top 2 teams in the pro classes. Then you got Racing Lab Esports, Altitude Esports by Sim Stickers, and Nomad. You head over to the AM category, and it's a little bit further apart between Full Tilt V Motorsport and Series 1 Racing, although 7 teams running for that AM championship. Full Tilt in 3rd, Altitude Freem Esports by Mr. Hedge, and Boosted Motorsport rounding out your top 5. So we've got 3 different championships to worry about as qualifying. Done and dusted here in a 3.56 mile road course that is the Daytona International Speedway. Of course, we use most of the oval, but the infield course is one of the spots that have been really hot. But Joe, the big question is, how many cars will survive the Daytona chicane, the Le Mans chicane, otherwise known as the bus stop?
Yeah, especially since this is now an updated version here in the sim, matching real life, where they no longer have the grass out there, which means they have much more severe curbs on the apexes. That's been a big talking point with the drivers. Some of the makes of cars can handle those curbs a little bit better than others. So you may see some advantages on that front, especially if it comes down to the end and someone looking to get a launch into the oval to the line.
Well, let's take a look at the grid for race number 1. This is a twin 45-minute race. It's James Boomey taking the lead over Alexander Davidson. They've been your front 2 runners all season long. Michael Avdaka and Ross McFarland sit there in row 2. Then you've got the Altitude Freem Esports driver of Matthias Piernan and Harrison Crowther in row 3. Over to row 4, it's Dan McCauley. What a fantastic race showing he has so far, with Dennis Grabowski alongside Arthur Thurtle and William Guthrie, your leading Pro-Am driver. Then it's Tommy Vettel and Anders Mira in row 6. Row 7 is Adam Watson and Phil Samways. Ben Altria and Drew Fletcher sit there in row 8. Row 9, Haikon Ida Linmo and Dickie Simnor in row 9. Then you go back to row 10. Taylor Lane and Elliot Roberts. Jesse Payne Wilkins and Jack Osborne sit there in row 11. Row 12, Howard Hassan and Joe Coffin. In row 13, it's Patrick Faulkner and Jox Eva, Ben Gregory, and John Roberts make up row 14. Row 15, Ben Bennyworth and Nathan Healy. If you take a look at row 16, you've got Adam Hedgecock and Lee Beeridge. Then you got Colin Sansom and Paul Smith sitting back there alongside each other. Michael Gray and Aiden Carter is going to have an uphill battle coming from the 36 spot. And shotgun out of field is going to be the number 20, as the number 23 of Tom Griffiths. We'll take 37 cars as everybody's gridding up here on the back straightaway. Joe, Daytona is one of my favorite courses to call, and of course, absolutely beautiful conditions.
Indeed, you see 24 Celsius on the track surface itself. That's the big one we want to watch out for. And for our non-metric friends, actually, well, my track is not showing now, so I've lost the Fahrenheit translation. There it is, 75 degrees. Sorry about that. 75 degrees on the track surface for our drivers. It's in a pretty good condition, but it is going to cool down. You can see we're running this in November, and though it even is only 4:30 p.m. local time in the sim, we already have the sun nearly setting.
Yeah, and of course, here's the thing, 60% humidity, so already a little muggy out there, to say the least. Of course, we are not too far away from the Atlantic Ocean in the eastern part of the peninsula that is Florida. You see the paved portion of the Le Mans chicane. Of course, the backstretch was fully paved to help the NASCAR Cup cars stay aground. We saw how well that worked earlier on the season in the real life, but nonetheless, it is still interesting to see these cars run through here. We'll see how they fare in anger. You see the BMW pace car making its way through NASCAR 3 and 4. What a beautiful sight here to see so many GT3 cars run on that banking. Glad to have you with us here on RaceSpot. Thanks for joining us all season long for World Sim Racing. The GT Championship is just about ready to get going. Nobody has a hand on the title just yet, but nonetheless, it's been James Boomey and Alex Davidson all season long. Pace car pulls off, field starts to tighten up. We're ready for 45 minutes of racing. Green flag is out. James Boomey has a good jump as we see Grabowski get around Dan McCauley for that 8th place. Already jockey for position. Turn 1's one of those hold your breath moments here, especially on the first lap. So far, so good. Everybody making their way, minding their P's and Q's as they head towards the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, no incidents into there. That is a great sign. Oh, except looks like on the exit, one car getting spun off, 2 cars down into the infield, but they're able to keep going. That's the important part. Unfortunately, we're not going to see them backed up into the pack due to a yellow flag, so this is going to be a long slog.
That was Ross McFarland who spun off in turn number 2. Now Davidson trying to make life difficult for James Boomey. These 2 Mustangs have been neck and neck all season long, as we've mentioned. You're seeing it now. 0.2 of a second separate those 2 cars. We'll have replays here shortly, but let's at least get through this first lap. Onto the banking they come for the first time in anger. Everybody making their way through turn number 6. So far, so good. Anders Mira sitting there in 9th place as Aiden Carter gets around Adam Hedgecock for the 28th spot. Now the draft will come into play, and this is the part of the racetrack that all the drivers in the chat were worried about, going into the Le Mans chicane for the first time at speed. So far, so good, as now we go in single file. Look at this. This is one of my favorite views in all of motorsport. Just that fixed camera, watching the cars go over the bumps, and we're looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the exit, though, as we saw out of the first corner. That can often throw drivers for a loop as well. But, yeah, it looks like everybody managed to make their way past it. Now, I don't know if anybody got a cut course penalty for that, though, which is probably going to be a big talking point. But look at this. I'd say that Davidson and Boomey know exactly how this game is played. Alex is already giving him a little bit of a bump down to turn 1.
And of course, with Davidson taking the wide line, trying to get a faster entrance going into the International Horseshoe, as we're seeing live jockey for position, as Guthrie trying to get into some position as well for, he's got to hold off Mira as well through the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, that is always a tempting place to try and make a pass, especially if you don't have the straight line speed. But already Guthrie on the back of Watson, also giving him a push in the infield, which is a bit unusual. But maybe just deciding it's better to try and size this car up for a little bit later. You can see some side-by-side behind them as well between Vidal and Altria. Both fighting for 11th position, and defensive down to the inside. Vidal trying to cover off turn 6, but it's the corner, really, honestly, Jeremy, that you want to set up for. This is such a long run coming down to Le Mans.
And here's what's interesting too. It's a corner you really want to set yourself up for, but you know as well as I do, that can be a race ender. It's so tricky trying to set yourself up. And of course, the longer we get into this race, and even in the next race, if it gets dark and we get under the lights, that's when turn 6 really becomes slick. So it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers fare with that. And of course, we will have the compulsory pit stop here in, I would say, probably the next 20 minutes or so. We'll have this in earnest as Jack Osborne falls off the pace right now. We take a look at a replay of that incident, and it looks like, McFarland just turned by one of the altitude frame drivers. I believe that was Abdaka. That was one of them who, actually, it's Abdaka who was involved in that early race incident. As we get back to the action, Patrick Faulkner trying to hold off Joe Coffin, and you know as well as I do, you get in that draft, Joe, you can pop out, but you got to make sure to defend the driver that you're passing going into turn 1.
Exactly, and it looks like they're going to be able to make their way out of the corner on that one. You got to remember, too, is that little chicane that they have there coming down into the International Horseshoe. We've already seen that can cause quite a few problems, as we got a car maybe spun on the inside, and I think that may be
that's
Lindmo
who spun on the inside. Yeah. Yeah,
Not sure
that's
if there was any hope involved in that.
Oh, who quick spin. Yeah, we'll see what happens there, but Lindmo falling down to 34th, and yeah, that chicane, as we see time and time again, and yeah, just a case of getting on your gas too soon. That chicane time and time again has proved more treacherous than it really is.
Yeah, and you got to be careful if you go too wide through theirs. It can be a real problem at the start, which we've seen illustrated in this race, and thankfully at least all drivers are able to continue, because sometimes it can send you right into that barrier at the side of the track. In the meantime, very defensive moves here coming down into Le Mans. Hassan versus Roberts. Now, I think we're going to see some posturing like that, Jeremy, but I'm glad to see that Roberts didn't actually go for the pass, because it is quite dangerous to try and make an overtake down into the chicane.
I would imagine with a lot of these drivers taking that practice over the past week, saying, hey, this time the bus stop, the Mans chicane, it's going to cause some drivers to fly as high as some of the planes going into. He's got Balfour for the lead right now. Davidson has a nose out front, but Boomey gets back up in front. Oh, a little bit of a bump there with he and Crowther as they go neck and neck through turn number 2. Now, Davidson has the line, but we're going to see if Crowther can get into second place. This is reminiscent of the Rolex earlier this year, except this time it's the same manufacturer, but Davidson holds on to second place.
Yeah, it's tough to try and make the pass around the outside, even if they had two cars battling there in front of Crowther. He's still trying to get himself involved, and this time he's absolutely going to shove Davidson off the racing line. That was a little bit rude, but Davidson actually gets a good exit. And there we go. There's some good sportsmanship. Crowther knew he was probably in the wrong there. He gave the position back.
And, of course, he's got another opportunity to at least try and make a clean pass there. Yeah, that was a little weird seeing that going into the West Horseshoe there with Davidson kind of getting moved out of the way, but we do see Crowther deep into that draft. He's close enough to have some sort of effect. Those Mustangs punch a huge hole in the air. And, of course, it's interesting to see Crowther take a little bit of a tighter line coming out, effectively ruining possibly any attack that he may have. Could he be setting up for turn number 1? Does he think that that's a better opportunity?
And check out Grabowski. He's now suddenly a part of this. They had started to slip away a little bit last lap, but no longer the case. They're being caught not only by P4, but I think Purinen in the 49 might be able to reel them in as well, as he's just about half a second back. But this looks a little bit more single file than what we saw last time down at the first corner, unless Davidson is eager to try and get aggressive. And while he does go a little bit wide, it looks like he's not able to make the pass. Speaking of wide, my goodness, I think that was Grabowski there who took a very, very open line.
You're talking about open lines, and I've got to say this, over the past several years, since NASCAR has effectively paved that little section between turns 1 and 6, we've seen a lot of very interesting wide lines. As you saw there, you're watching Crowther try and close in on Davidson once again through the kink, and Davidson knowing that he's all business, but at the same time, look at all those altitude frame liveried cars. You have to go back several spots to find a WSR teammate to help Davidson out.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's got to feel a little bit lonely out there. But even amongst that sea of the Freem cars, can we give some credit to Dan McCauley, our lead AM right now, sitting in 6th overall. He started in 7th. I mean, he is putting on a stunner of a race.
He really is, and that's actually been the modus operandi for McCauley so far this season. As you're watching him behind Matthias Purinen, he's actually kind of made the case to go up to class, and a lot of the chats are saying McCauley to pro, McCauley to pro, but I have a feeling we're going to see him promote himself to Pro-Am next season. The next closest AM driver is Ben Altria in 11th. We kind of highlighted this battle for the championship in our open. McCauley and Altria come in tied on points for the AM. Now, normally this series is a drop series, but the last round here at Daytona, no drops, as Boomey tried to hold off another attack by Davidson coming across the line. We'll talk about that in a second, but look at this. Boomey, nice and tight. He's going to come close, and oh, nice little defense. That's going to give Crowther a chance to get into position to battle Davidson for that second spot, but Davidson once again smart to cut him off. Now they're close to 3 wide going into the West Horseshoe. Not going to happen, as they're all going to stretch out single file. There is a slower car up ahead ahead, that could prove a little bit difficult. Anyway, back to what we were saying, this race, this is going to be straight up points. So doesn't matter if you've dropped races or not, you are basically going for points. It makes things a little bit easier as Crowther once again goes around the outside. That opens up the attack for Grabowski to get into third place.
Isn't quite close enough. And I like what I'm seeing from Crowther here as well, because that's what to me is saying there are team tactics going on. He's doing everything he can to try and hassle Davidson. And yes, you would usually be trying to attack there, but in most cases with him fighting so hard for the lead, you tend to try to set yourself up a little bit and maybe out drag him off the corner. He's more so just trying to distract that number 55, who's likewise doing a boomy here coming into the chicane once again. So I think Crowther is kind of playing the team game and causing problems for Davidson to help out Boomy and maybe give him a little bit more breathing room.
Now, here's something else to consider, Joe, as well. You get points docked for every 2 incidents after 7X. So that's something to think about as well. Now, does Crowther go in and kind of play the aggressor, get get Davidson up to the point we had a little bit of a spin there by one of the Mercedes? Does he get up there kind of, okay, we're going to get you 7X? All right, let's get to 9X now, and so on and so forth, but not enough to where either of those two drivers need a drive-through.
Could be, and this is Tom Griffiths, I believe, that found the outside wall. That is a very common error to make coming out of the Le Mans chicane, unfortunately. Just getting a little bit too loose, and there are safer barriers, which help somewhat, but it's still a pretty big smack most times.
And that was actually Taylor Lane that went and was into the wall. And yeah, that area needed a safer barrier. Bad. Oh, there we go once again. Crowther all over the back bumper like a cheap suit on Davidson around the West Horseshoe. And the one driver that's really liking this is James Boomy, because he doesn't have to do too much of a defense, but he's going to have to watch out as there is slower traffic up ahead. We've got a slow car. Oh, no. Is it Altria? Yeah, that is Ben Altria. Tied for the points, leading the AM with an issue, taking the motorcycle shortcut. And that's not something that you want. Oh, that's why Aiden Carter with a spin, taking out at least one other driver through turn number 1. And wow, that is something.
So here's Altria. Seeing, oh, he goes way, way wide. And yeah, no wonder he probably was going to have trouble getting it slowed up and re-entering in a safe way. So like you said, took the motorcycle exit. That was probably smart, but gave him a big slowdown, as unfortunately for Adam Watson, super big damage on the front. In fact, I don't think that left front tire is even turning right now.
No, it's not. Watson has a meatball flag, and he also saw Barrage with the meatball flag as well. What happened here? I have a feeling it's, oh, that's a big one, as we saw Barrage just strike that tire bundle that was put in there to kind of, another launch there. But yeah, watch the overhead as Barrage just, whacks it, and Watson nowhere to go. So both drivers, their races could be over after that incident.
And that's a good example of why the real track does not have that tire bundle there in that place, especially one that can't move like this one. There is no give. In the real world, it probably would be knocked out of the way, but massive damage for 3 cars, 2 of which, you got to say, are really blameless in that situation.
Yeah, that was just a case of one driver trying to, shortcut the course the best they could without getting a penalty. But those new rumble strips that they have there in the Le Mans chicane have done nothing but cause problems, either in real life or in the sim. Barrage finds pit road, and Ben Altria does come out on course. So Barrage, Osborne, those 2 drivers are in the pits right now, still watching this battle for the lead. And we're going to see these battles all throughout the race, because you get 90% of the tri-oval here at the Daytona International Speedway to have to draft off of. So a lot of it is strategic racing. Then you've got this battle back here. It's the William Guthrie battle, all involved, where we've got Guthrie, McFarlane, Vettel up ahead. Samways trying to go high, wide, and handsome through NASCAR 3 and 4.
And we're seeing a lot of groups of these Fords as well. That's the lone Mercedes trying to see if he can get the run. Does a good job, and that's going to move Samways up up into 11th, while on the bottom screen, battle for the lead still going on. Boomy keeps Davidson behind him lap after lap. I wonder at what point with that expected pit stop, drivers will start to think strategically, and look how defensive they are down into the inner loop. You usually don't see cars all the way shallow to the inside into there.
I just had a brief second to check the chat. Cygnus9421 said those curbs are a war crime. I'm sure you ask anybody who's raced since the repave and the remodel, and they will agree with you. As you're on board with Harrison Crowther, just trying to be nothing but difficult to Alexander Davidson. Oh, by the way, we've got a fun feature that we'll have here in about a half hour or so. We'll invert the field with the wheel. I want Madness Day. I want the full field invert.
Oh, goodness. He'd put poor Paul Smith up towards the top. I think he'd have a heart attack on that one. But as we watch this front group, I mentioned that you had that lone Mercedes. In this one, it's a lone Aston Martin in Grabowski that's kind of bucking the trend up at the front of the field, but has been sitting quite patiently back in that 4th spot. At times, he's poked his nose in, but I always try to keep a watch on those drivers that are towards the back. In case they're maybe just planning something for the future. Oh, but Grabowski got a cut course penalty and he's disappeared.
Yeah, that's not too much of a surprise. We saw the air that he got through that chicane as Dan McCauley now makes his way into the top 5. I'll make a point about Grabowski and the Aston here shortly, but take a look at your tower. Look who's up to 9th. Ross McFarlane making his way up the field after an early race incident as Thurtle gets around Grabowski for 6th place. And I'm sure that you've noticed this too throughout the series that you do, but it really seems like since the new Evo for the Aston Martin came out, that car has gotten nothing but faster and faster.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the comfort of driving it definitely plays a big part of that around the outside here, as I think that was Coffin on Bennyworth taking 19th position. That's our traditional passing spot you're going to expect to see all day long, is just hitting that slipstream, try to outbrake your rival down into 1.
Still got this battle for the lead between Boomy, Davidson, and Crowther. There's so many great battles going on here, but that is the nature of the Daytona Roval here in Central Florida. These cars just love to race around here as Crowther falls back into 5th, 6th. Wonder what happened there with Crowther. He got a shortcut penalty. It looks like that he might have.
Yeah, I was watching it as it happened, and the rear of the car started to come around, and right at the absolute worst moment when he caught the banking. So that's when you really need to not lose your momentum. And he fell backwards once again. Yeah, some of these cars just flying through the air. And unfortunately for Grabowski, the 2nd lap in a row, I think he may have had to give a little bit of time back.
Yeah, I wonder if Daytona International Airport has been getting notices of cars kind of getting some air, because those who don't know, there's an international air.
Yeah, in fact,
right behind there. That also where Emery Riddle teaches their students out. Good.
Apologies for that. Maybe just a little bit of a connection problem for Jeremy for a brief moment. But yeah, even in the sim, they have a plane landing, which has honestly been a source of comedy, because apparently the entry speed is not quite accurate, maybe a little bit too quick for what would be a realistic landing. Meanwhile, nice little fight here coming down through the inner loop for somewhere in the mid-pack. I think that's 13th up at the front with Elliott Roberts, as Howard Hassan has now moved himself into 3rd in the AM category for Full Tilt V Motorsport. So out onto the oval once more, now riding on board with William Guthrie. And this will really show you how important it is getting that throttle down and keeping your foot down up onto this portion. You are flat to the floor all the way to the bus stop chicane from here, and it looks like it was not a good exit for Guthrie as those cars ahead start to get smaller and smaller in the windscreen. So Hassan can now focus forward on Michael Gray for a little bit into the braking, He's not going to attempt anything there. Maybe try to set himself up for the exit as we hop on board with Hassan. And one car going up to the high side, Michael Gray. I thought maybe he would have to serve a bit of a slowdown, but it looks like he is okay. Just maybe giving himself some extra run off to the edge here.
Davidson now tries to go around the outside of Boomy, and much like everybody else, my internet took a shortcut penalty through the Le Mans chicane, so that was the whole issue through there. Single file once again as they work their way into the International Horseshoe, and Boomy with a nice tight line going into the entry to the Horseshoe. As man, this race has been nothing but spectacular. And Joe, I have a feeling now that some drivers, the pit window might be open for some opportunistic opportunities, especially those that think they might want to try for the undercut.
Yeah, and the big thing for that you have to realize in this, in 45 minutes, it's not going to make sense to try and undercut with tires, because you're not going to take tires. What you will be doing, though, is trying to save a little bit of fuel, and especially at a track like Daytona. But Davidson has been on the attack for much of this time. I think maybe he's cooled down a little bit. Hopefully he's realized that the game he needs to play here is that pit stop, because even if you're, let's say, 1 second shorter or half a second shorter on the pit stop, that can get you what you need to finally get by that car that has track position.
And of course, the second here means a lot more than it would at any other circuit. Really, the only circuits that a second can mean the difference between a big gap and a small gap are Le Mans and Spa. Once again, Davidson gets into the draft of Boomy. They go tight along that double yellow line. And so far, Boomy holding off Davidson. He's led from the drop of the green flag. There's been opportunities that Davidson has tried to make a pass, but Boomy's really tried to make him work for it, and it doesn't help when you've got, Purinen, Crowther, Grabowski, all those drivers who made life difficult on Davidson. Oh, Purinen tried to go for that late lunge, and McCauley, I'm sure he wants to get into the overall podium, but sitting in fourth, I'm sure he's probably feeling pretty good as William Guthrie falling down the order at this time. So pit stops are starting as we see Guthrie, Gregory into the pits as well as Tom Griffiths.
Yep, this is about what I was expecting with 50% fuel. Most of these cars are going to go at maximum, probably in the range of about 30 minutes. So 15 minutes left is what I anticipate to be the end of the pit window. In the meantime, most drivers are going to be trying to go to the end of that pit window. That's why it's kind of this game of who blinks first with the leaders. You don't gain an advantage unless you can have a shorter pit stop, since there is no tire advantage after the stop.
And you got to stop and figure too, Boomy's running a lot, wasting a lot more fuel than Davidson is, because Davidson's been sitting back there on that rear bumper under the wing of Boomy, with Boomy having to punch that hole. So that's also going to come into play as well. But there are times where Davidson, you see him pop out for a look or even for a pass. 22.5 minutes left in this race. I Punch Demons. I didn't know the IMSA Mustang Challenge was today. Well, welcome to WSR, the Mustang Challenge of sim racing. Look at the movement that Davidson has going into turn number one. Still too far away. It seems like that he's picking the wrong times to pop out, but at the same time, it could be portions of, I want to get in your mirrors, I want to get inside your head. That's difficult for anybody to try and get inside Boomy's head. Except for, oh no, a little bit of a bump there going into the International Horseshoe.
I think he avoided actual contact, but it was mighty close between them, as Davidson braking way, way later. And you're right, yeah, he's forcing him to have to try and go defensive out there and compromise his line. Do anything he can to try and shake him up. So far, hasn't worked, and credit to Boomy for dealing with that, because that is not easy. Meanwhile, Evdoka, by the way, I think is our first to fall victim to an incident limit penalty.
Yeah, of course, that was right as Evdoka came into the pit, so not sure if he's going to have to serve that as another pass-through, or if he can just serve that on the pit road. kind of watching the time. 17 seconds is about where we're supposed to be for pit stops, and it looks like he might be able to serve the penalty, so he'll fall through. Basically, if his race wasn't over beforehand, it is now. Through the Le Mans chicane at speed, 21 minutes left. This is just getting nice and spicy as you're on board with Matthias Pirinen going through NASCAR 3 and 4. I'll tell you what, anyone who's been behind Davidson has had a great view. Of course, they've also had the altitude paint scheme on their cars. Let's see what happens this time by. Who decides they're going to slam down into the pits? Not any one of the top three, I'll tell you that right now, as everybody up front deciding the track position is going to be a little bit better. Once again, Davidson pulling out, but still too little too late to get ahead of Boomy.
Nice little fight that unfortunately went awry. I'm trying to make out who that is, but they came to a halt there at the bus stop, so not sure why, because it wasn't that hard of a hit. Meantime, Pirinen actually really getting underneath, coming down through the International Horseshoe. Again, not able to suddenly pass. His teammates weren't able to overtake the 55, but he seems pretty confident that he can make it happen as he's weaving back and forth. There's a variety of lines that you can take down into that Western Horseshoe, and I think that can often make it tricky and wind up with a contact like we saw earlier that nearly shoved Davidson off the course there.
No surprise, a group of 10 decided to go in and pit, and that was one of the things I thought was going to happen. Vettel, Gray, Simnor, Hassan, Roberts, Carter, Faulkner, Coffin, Eva, Bennyworth, and Hedgecock all decided to answer the call to come in and pit. And it's just one of those cases, Joe, where if one driver is going to pit, you might as well go with who you're drafting with, because you don't want to get caught out in any sort of scenario where you're hung out to dry. So it'll be interesting to see if Boomy pits, if Davidson on back decides to pit, or if Davidson decides to stay out with the extra fuel that he has.
Ooh, that was a great exit by Davidson, and he actually gets underneath coming out of the bus stop. So he will be up to the lead this time, unless Davidson is really able to outbrake him, or maybe this group will pit in. And, oh, it looks like they will, but this is going to be a game of chicken. Who can break later between them? And, oh, that was close for Pirinen. I think he managed to avoid a speeding penalty, but he gained a lot on his way to the cones.
That was one heck of a battle for the pit entry, as now Thurtle is your leader because of this, and now everybody coming in. This is interesting because you have drivers who are coming in and drivers who are coming out. We have Boomy, Davidson, Pirinen all in the pits. Let's see who gets out first. The points leaders are in pit stalls 1 and 2. Again, 17 seconds has been the norm for a lot of drivers. So, oh, look at that. Davidson gets out first and gets the edge over James Boomy. Oh, this is going to be quite interesting to see if Boomy can defend and get that lead back. You talk about a fantastic race off of pit road. You saw Davidson in second and out first.
Man, they are absolutely on it. The pit stop time, exactly the same between Davidson and Boomy, 15.5 seconds stationary. So they took it right to the edge. And speaking of taking it to the edge, you can see Guthrie in a big fight coming down into turn 1. I think he'll be able to come away with that 16th place. What about Joe Coffin here?
And Joe Coffin's had a great race in 20 seconds. Of course, just came off of pit road, not too up to speed in 22nd.
You know, you mentioned something interesting before we had that flurry of pit stops out there, and that is what I call the buddy system, trying to make sure you're with a group and keep that group, especially if you're not trying to undercut them. Well, I think Thurtle did not learn that lesson, because he's the only one that has stayed out until this lap. Now, he may have saved a little bit of fuel and actually be able to have a slightly shorter stop on that front, but we're talking small tenths of a second difference that he'll make on there.
Davidson falling down through the course. Was that Davidson? I saw a shortcut one of the chicanes.
You're right.
I think that might have been. Let's take a look at the replay. And indeed, holy cow, that was way too fast. Spinning contact. That is not something what Davidson needs, as he is only 49 points going into this race. Ahead of James Boomy. If he has to come in and serve a meatball flag, that's going to be devastating. He's into the pits. He is into the pit, so Boomy may have seen his championship hopes improve with that little wiggle into the wall.
I don't see a meatball flag for him. Let me double check on that. No, so this wasn't a forced pit stop, but he's come in anyways to try to get that car repaired, and he's having to take 2 stabs at getting to his box. So unfortunate on that front. Dan McCauley, who was doing so good today, I gotta say, I don't think that one was his fault based on that angle.
No, he was punted right there, but Dan McCauley still has about 3 Pro-Am drivers between he and Ben Altria. McCauley 8th on the track, Altria 12th on the track. So plenty of breathing room, but still, it's not something you need when you're tied on points. Now remember, a win will garner you 110 points. So this is going to be, I think this race here for the AM title is going to be whoever finishes ahead of the other driver in the next 2, in this race, in the next race later on. That's what's going to be, that's going to be your champion. But wow, what a turn of events with James Boomy. Now will either inch closer or take the lead right out with his main title protagonist still in the pits. Alex Davidson falling back to 35th spot. I got to take a look at the points as John Roberts gets a black flag for points.
And I wonder if that's because Davidson used his spare car in the first pit stop, because otherwise he should have just been in and out, taking the spare car and returned. This is going to be absolutely devastating, him having to sit and wait for those repairs.
So 110 points is a win. 40 points right now where Alex Davidson is. I've almost done that all season long. Sits in 35th, so that's 40 points. Let me do some quick math here, but right now on track, James Boomy should be your points leader.
Nice little fight between McFarlane and Grabowski. This is for 6th position, and Ross gets the P6 away from him, but all of them still within range of P3. That incident did break up our top 2. Boomy and Pirinen still together, but running away from everybody else. But there's a huge fight for that last step on the podium as Altria has to collect the car coming into turn 6, and that has cost him some time.
Oh, that's good for our points. Our points leader on the track right now, Dan McCauley. Not so good for Altria. Quick sketch of points as they run right now. Yeah, Boomy has the lead, 1984 to 1956. So that little loose into the Le Mans chicane may have cost Davidson big time. The only thing he could really hope for is a little bit of lockup there through the Le Mans chicane. The only thing he can hope for is a big invert.
That was Adam Watson getting loose and having to save the car, and he's going to lose a lot of positions because of that one. Thurtle, though, here in a little fight 2x2 coming down into the opening corner, and thankfully they'll get away with that one. It can sometimes be a little tricky since there's so many different lines that you can take down into turn 1.
And it looks like some drivers are trying multiple lines going into the International Horseshoe as well. So that's kind of interesting, trying to use as much as they can as Coffin gets around. Patty Faulkner's, that's a great battle for 20th spot as well. But Thurtle, I'll tell you what, that's a driver who's really improved over this season, sitting there in 6th place overall. Of course, you've got all 3 leaders in the top 10. Boomy, your overall leader. And it looks like it's an altitude 1, 2, 3 with Pirinen and Crowther sitting there in 3rd place. You've got a little bit of smoke, not sure what happened there, but McCauley, your AM leader, sitting in 8th. Tommy Vettel, your Pro-Am leader, sitting there in 9th place. Just under 12 minutes left to go, and we have had an action-packed feature race number 1, and we've got 45 more minutes to go right after this here. So whatever you think is going to happen, it definitely is completely outside the realm what we have seen. Jeremy Scott alongside Joe Peak here at the Daytona International Speedway. Can you think of a better place to crown a champion?
It's kind of ironic since it's usually what opens up the season for sports car racing, but it still, I think, suits them. So McFarlane is going to find himself with a nice little push here and he'll be able to go by Crowther, being helped along by Myers being pushed by McFarlane, I should say, although Anders goes a little bit wide, and now Ross sees an opportunity, but he's going to be on the wrong side coming down into the International Horseshoe.
Meatball for Jack Osborne, some repairs needed. And we see a lot more of these meatball flags, but a lot of the track here is buttoned up against the walls because most of the track is the oval. You've got a mile and change that are absolute road course as Mira goes into third for the time being, but McFarlane trying to stay within striking distance to get on that podium as McFarlane, I gotta say, what a great drive from him going up to fifth after that early race incident.
Yeah, he's still down 1 from where he started, but still not too bad. Mira, though, up 9 from where he started, sitting in third overall. Really fantastic run for him. And you can see there is Crowther being chased by McFarlane, coming down towards the bus stop once again. Ross is going to show himself in the mirrors, try to see if he can get him to rattle a little bit coming into the chicane, but no dice, as they'll all hit their marks nice and tidy, but it's a little bit tighter for the 127. He's got a good run.
Yeah, so far so good in that run. As just look at the gap between second and third, about 5 seconds separates those two drivers. But McFarlane all over the back of Crowther for that fourth spot. And really, it's interesting to see a BMW up at the front because our buddy Paul Smith has lamented that he's had nothing but problems with BMWs. And I've told him on broadcast, I go, dude, it's not your fault, not your fault. Well, Anders Mira, who also has complained that, the BMW is tough to drive, kind of proving me wrong here in third.
Yeah, and traditionally the BMWs are known for being pretty good on power, although maybe not aerodynamically the most impressive car. Here today, I guess the power is enough to really kind of make up for some of the aerodynamic faults as he's got it up to that P3 spot. Crowther, and I thought maybe he was going to try something down into there, but then decides against it into the Western Horseshoe. There's so little time left. You're going to have to start setting up, if you're in a group like this, Jeremy, figuring out how you want to play the last lap, essentially. What position do you want to be in? Because if you time the exit right, you can get 1, 2, maybe even 3 spots.
You got to make sure you're in the correct draft area, and you want to make sure that you are with people that you trust, as Nathan Healy gets a black flag for incident points. And once again, watching this battle, and now we're going to start to see the lights take effect here with about 8 minutes left to go. These cars are going to look so great under the spotlights of the Daytona International Speedway. And this is another cool part, too. You get to see the lights that the iRacing devs have put into these cars to kind of show discoteca, as some of the cool people say.
Yeah, exactly. That's to help the night vision, as we got a spin from Falconer coming out of turn 6. It's embarrassingly easy to do that there because, yeah, it looks like a simple 90-degree left-hander, but it's a little bit off camber. It's also very bumpy, and at the same time, you got to get the throttle down as soon as possible. So that's why you see so many drivers over the years overcook it into there. Ross, aggressive down into the International Horseshoe. It just about works.
I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for Alex Davidson, Ross McFarlane has been the star of WSR Esports. But again, overshadowed by Alex Davidson, who I don't think we're going to see come back out. No, we will not see come back out, as that incident has been a race ender. So nothing but devastating. It'll be interesting to see. We'll see some bonus points out of James Boomey, obviously with leading the most laps. If he gets the fastest lap, that'll be another dagger in the hopes of the championship Davidson, and really question is how many will be in the full field. Well, then it's game on for Davidson, but at the same time, if we only invert maybe the top half or 20 some odd, then the title chase gets a little bit tougher. Tommy Vettel with the incident as he falls back into 17th. Not sure if he's in a group or if that was just some sort of off track that he had to serve. We'll find out here in just a little bit, but McFarlane trying to close in on Mira as the BMW ahead of Mustang in NASCAR 3 and 4.
This is going to be for the champagne. The driver is going to be eager to add this to their stats. Nice run from Ross. Like we saw, he's not shy, making that fantastic pass down into the International Horseshoe, and he's going to add to that tally as he's great on the brakes coming down into turn 1 as well. He has got that car set up beautifully under braking.
Well, he ran 0.3 of a second faster than Mira that last time by. So no shock here. Unfortunately, it's too little too late to catch up to the duo of Boomy and Pirinen, but still bottom step of the podium. That's something that WSR Esports might want, especially after the issue. And yeah, Ben Altria back on pit road, and it looks like that he last time by, it looked like his pit stop was 6.7 seconds. So could it have been a splash and dash here?
That would be my assumption. 5 minutes left. Yeah, he must have realized that his calculations were wrong by this stage and had to try and come back in, as Falconer, I think, is going to be able to get by Payne Wilkins.
And we're not seeing any issues reported with them. By the way, a little bit of house cleaning. Barrage and Davidson both out onto the track. Again, Davidson 6 laps down, Barrage 15 laps down. Both of those drivers suffering some big time repairs after incidents that they had. Still a lot of racing left to go with 4.5 minutes left. Here is the 3:55 once again. And no, not Paul. No. Oh, why? Come on. Why do we have to show that?
He'll be chucking his hat down on the ground in frustration, no doubt. But there's Ben Altria back on the track, trying to make up for this loss of position and what little he can here at the end of the race. It started so well, looking like maybe potentially at least a second in class to help him out in that fight coming down to the last race. But this is going to be a huge blow where it's almost out of his hands, and he'll have to hope for a majorly bad race from McCauley.
And that's been difficult to ask for because McCauley has been nothing but on it for the second half of the season. He's really come on to his own here as McCauley sitting in 8th place overall. Michael Gray right now, your Pro-Am leader, about a half second ahead of Phil Samways. Not only was that a close battle for 10th, but that's all 9th, I should say, but that's also a close battle for the Pro-Am lead. As the Altria trying to close in on Tom Griffiths, Ben Gregory not too far away back there. For 24th, so lots of still jostling as the sun sets in the west here at the Daytona International Speedway. Harrison Crowther closing in on Anders Mira as they work into the bus stop, the Le Mans chicane. Yep, there's a little 737 going down the taxiway. Joe, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to watch a race at Daytona, but it's neat sitting in the grandstands, watching the action, and oh, there goes a Delta 737 coming up, or oh, it's an A380.
See, that's the thing is you guys know your planes a little bit better than I do. But yeah, I have gotten to be there a couple times and get to see the action happen behind the scenes as well as out on the track in front of you. But we got plenty of action here still for this 3rd position. Now that Ross has moved up to there, is this where he wants to be? Remember what I said earlier about trying to set yourself up? I have seen it possible to be the leader in a group and come away with the spot or the victory by the end, but it is very vulnerable. You have to be so confident in your speed and your corner exits.
Tommy Vettel back into the pits, 2.8 seconds. So looks like he had some fuel miscalculations. Who else will fall victim to fuel miscalculations? Gotta say, if you're some of the drivers who've taken 15-second pit stops, you might be gritting your teeth here with Boomy, Piernan, and McFarland. 1, 2, 3, a big gap between Piernan and McFarland for that 7th podium. There's Crowther trying to close in on Mira around turn number 6. And we will get the white flag this time by as Boomy working his way towards the Le Mans chicane for the penultimate time, I should say, going into this race. And there you kind of see him going through there with that distance as they work their way around. But still, McFarland, gotta say, driver of the race out of him with that spin in turn 2 and lap 1, working his way up to 3rd. You gotta tell that the grit was there.
Yeah, and what could have happened if he hadn't had that spin, too? He'd probably be a little bit farther up, maybe even potentially fighting for the win. But for now, at least he can hope for a possible podium. So still bringing along Meyer and Crowther there behind him. So it's not over, as now they get the white flag for 1 to go. And also worth noting that Piernan and Boomy only half a second apart. That one's not over yet either.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that there's some team tactics there. But you know what? That's just sports car racing in and of itself. Boomy, I'll tell you what, from the drop of the green flag, has been nothing short of spectacular. He survived several attacks by Davidson to get the lead. Davidson had his nose out for a little bit, but every time they brought the line, it has been Boomy time. Griffiths gets the late meatball flag, so he will be able to stay out on track. P9 for the 29, I should say P9 to 29. Get a replay here. We'll see what happens, but nonetheless, Boomy, he's got the ball in his court as he looks to come from behind and take the pro title. Now, as we mentioned, this has been one of those races that have been nothing short of crazy. We got to see where the chips lie here for the invert, but right now, that's not on the mind of James Boomy as he makes his way through the Le Mans chicane for the final time. Oh, a little bit of air there from Piernan, but he gets back going once again as Boomy, he controls his own destinies. He comes through NASCAR 3 and 4 for the final time in race number 1. All you have to do is win and you're in. That's the thought of the number 28 of James Boomy. Comes across the line, retakes the points lead with the checker flag out. Battle for 3rd and 4th heats up as Mira holds off Harrison Crowther for that spot.
Yeah, it looks like McFarland will take the 3rd position in the end. How about McCauley, our winner in the AM category, and Phil Samways as well, winner in the Pro-Am, 9th overall. Phil also running a very good race today, considering his class. And maybe one we didn't watch nearly as much, but sometimes you kind of want those quiet races where you fly under the radar.
It really is, as Joe Coffin comes on, and he's really made his climb throughout the field. Comes across the line, he'll finish 19th as the BMW looks pretty good. Nice little draft here that we're watching with Adam Watson. There's that a push down to the line. Evdaka with a black flag himself as 23rd place. Yeah, that was a little push, a little sportsmanship with Ben Gregory pushing Ben Altria to the line. So one has to wonder if a little bit of running on fumes there in that final lap.
Yeah, especially considering he managed to go by. Ooh, the reverse grid spin. I'll give you the honors here, Jeremy.
Oh, and it's going to be 25, so 25th. All is going to be your pole sitter. It'll be Jesse Payne Wilkins and Adam Watson on the front row. James Boomy is your winner, ahead of Matthias Piernan, Ross McFarland, Anders Mira, and Harrison Crowther. That's Arthur Thurdold, Dennis Grabowski, and your AM winner, Dan McCauley in 8th. 9th goes your Pro-Am winner, Phil Samways. 10th is Michael Gray in the 273. So take a look at 11th on that. William Howard Hassan, Aiden Carr. Aiden, they should do in lap 2. They made their way up to 14th with Elliott Roberts in 15th. 16th to Drew Fletcher with Island in 18th. To Taylor Lane, 19th. Joe Offin and Jacques Eva rounds out your top 20. And of course, as we mentioned, it's 25 cars we are inverting. So Ben Altria and Benjamin Gregory will be at the front with Adam Watson and Jesse Payne Wilkins up at the front. Those who are not so lucky include Adam Tommy Vidal, Michael Avdaka, and Paul Smith. And it's going to be an uphill battle to try and get that championship for Alexander Davidson as he finishes 6 laps down in 35th spot. Out of difficulties. Your fastest lap goes to Harrison Crowther on lap 26. So, Joe, that bonus point for the fastest lap will not go to the new points leader, which I've got to say that was quite interesting to see, as James Boomey is your winner. And of course, looking at the points, he takes a decent lead going into the second race. Again, 1984 to 1956.
Yeah, and that's what you want. Even if you haven't wrapped it up a race early, the best thing you can do for yourself in this situation is make it so it's more in your hands, that you can control your destiny. If you have, say, a little bit of a bad race and you maybe don't have the pace, or maybe something happens to you out on track that wasn't your fault, it suddenly doesn't become a case of, oh, well, there's the championship right there. You can rebound, you can try and just come back for a little bit of a solid finish and keep yourself in contention. The more gap that you have, the easier and more comfortable that is.
All right, it's your first race with us. You know, in Daytona, always a wild card, but what are your thoughts so far on how this final race of the season is playing out?
I think it very much shows that there's a lot of smart drivers out here, because we saw some people playing some wise games, others maybe having a little bit more issues. And I think what we've saw also kind of goes into what I talked about just a moment ago of trying to watch out for issues, because it seems little problems can become big ones that really aren't your fault. We saw incidents, especially in that bus stop chicane, that collected multiple drivers, and you just were caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that can so easily happen because, look at this. I mean, train racing is just kind of a part of an aspect of life here, racing at Daytona.
Well, we saw what happened in 45 minutes of racing. We've got one final 45-minute race to go here on the 3.56-mile Daytona Roval. I'm as excited as anybody else to see what happens and to crown some champions here on RaceSpotTV. We'll take a short break, but come back for the second race of 2. You're not going to want to miss it.
All of them as well. What a move to the 48. Oh, look at this. And onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
To throw at somebody, so. Race number 2 is about set to get underway. If 45 minutes wasn't enough for you, well, luckily for you, we've got another 45 minutes to go. My name is Jeremy Scott, alongside my good buddy and one of the voices of USAC Racing, Joe Peak. Joe, we're here at the Daytona International Speedway. This is one of my favorite venues, so whether it's spectating or calling, because it's so historic. We've seen so many great moments here, and we added a couple just a little bit ago.
Yes, and the thing about that is because we're coming back, now the drivers have some lessons that they've learned from that, and that can switch things up just as much as what we had with the inverse. That's obviously going to cause the drivers a little bit of a switch up that will maybe give them some different thought on how they want to approach this, but for the most part, it should be more or less similar to what they did before, which means if you feel like you made a mistake strategically, if you feel like you figured something out in how this track races better, that's going to help you from the get-go on this one.
Now, we won't get the points officially until after the race is over. Again, this is the final chance to make something happen. Going into this race, we had a 42-point difference between Davidson and Boomy. Davidson ended up in the wall on the outside of the Le Mans chicane, effectively ending his race. He spent 6 laps in the pits trying to get that fixed. We saw Aiden Carter with some difficulties in the early part of the race as well. Of course, the big one that we're watching is the AM battle. Dan McCauley and Ben Altria, 1,289 points, I should say. I forgot that 8. That's my fault. Both those had the same amount of points, but McCauley so far is looking pretty good, and he still has to keep Altria behind him, regardless of wherever McCauley is, because it's just now it's a matter of where are you going to finish, who's going to be a higher finisher.
Definitely. For McCauley, does have a little bit of an easier time of it, but yeah, he's got to just focus on his own race and figure out where that rival is. This time we will be under the lights. That also will change things up, as it's going to be a little bit cooler than when we had the sun at least beginning up when we started the last race. This one completely into the darkness.
Oh, I'm in heaven. I absolutely love this place, in the cloak of the night. And that's one of those places where you find a certain spot and then you watch it. I've got to say, my favorite spot of watching these cars at night are in that lower bowel of the grandstands. You're close to the track. You get the coolness of that humid ocean air. And the cars just go right past because it's so quiet around. Yeah, you've got the PA, but still, it is absolute perfection to watch these race cars dance around at night. I am excited for this race.
Personally, I love seeing them come through the kink, because that is a very high-speed section and you really see the downforce and the agility on these cars through that portion of the track. And also, you really don't understand how fast it is until you see it in person, how quickly they have to zip through that part in the infield.
And we got word for the series that the points have been updated, so we will go ahead and pull those championship standings up here in the broadcast center as Dan McCauley, does have that lead. William Guthrie has a 119-point gap over Aiden Carter in the Pro-Am standing. I'm trying to get the Pro standings, and my calculations actually weren't too far off. So we see James Boomey with a 30-point lead, and so that's huge. I'm actually going to try and pull these up on my computer here because the iPad decides, I'm only going to show you Pro-Am.
I think by my calculations, that means that Guthrie is crowned our Pro-Am champion because it's 110 points max for a victory. Theoretically, Carter is out of range. Well, we've got obviously just a little bit of a warm-up here before we head into the race itself. No qualifying needed since they go according to how the previous race finished, minus the top 25 being flipped on us. But watch out for that, creating some excitement. Because yes, 45 minutes is enough time for the race to start to work itself out. But Jeremy, that's still relatively short as well. I feel like if you're starting from 25th position for our winner, you've got your work cut out for you trying to get your way to the front, because by the time you reach the top, there could be a car that has separated themselves and has enough of a gap that you can't run them down by the end.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a big difficulty there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with 4 minutes left to go in this warm-up session. Yeah, so here's how the points stand out right now. James Boomey holds a 30-point gap between he and Davidson. Right now, those are the only two drivers who can make any sort of hay here in this championship. It's Ross McFarland, 143 points in arrears. Pro-Am, that's been done and dusted. Congratulations to William Guthrie, your Pro-Am champion for Full Tilt V Motorsport, Aiden Carter. And here's what's interesting about Carter, Joe. They have the only Lamborghini in the field.
Oh. I always love when someone kind of goes against the trend that way and shows that it can be done. Because yes, there are cars that maybe will suit certain tracks better, but there is a lot that goes into iRacing, putting the balance of performance on these machines. I'm good friends with one of the engineers that does a lot of that work, and I can tell you that he's incredibly smart and also very, very fast. So this isn't a case of, these are people that don't know what they're doing that are equalizing these cars. These are very quick drivers in the sim that have an incredible amount of knowledge that are making sure that they're as close as they can possibly get. So if you pick a car that maybe others haven't picked, you still got a realistic shot. You just don't have as much data as everybody else does.
And taking a look at the AM points, Dan McCauley holds a 31-point advantage over Ben Altria. Again, to remind you of what we're looking at right now, for first place, it's 110 points. Second place, 104 points. Third place, 99 points. And then it rapidly goes down from there. 92 points for fifth, 89 for sixth, 86 for seventh. And then you start to go for 2 points back until you get to about 50 points, which is 25th place. Then it's 1 point behind that. So you really got to be careful, and I'm sure that's what the Alex Davidson is really lamenting, is that incident that he had. Of course, he basically lost the back end there through the chicane, which we know is very easy to do.
Yeah, I've done that so many times in that chicane. And it's probably even worse now. I actually need to get out there and try those new curbs and kind of see how that has changed how this thing races. But I know even when you didn't have those there, trying to get the car to shift weight, that's really the big problem there. Is you're switching directions so quickly that if it starts to get off, then it's going to suddenly find itself kind of wanting to continue that trajectory. So that's why you see people on the entry wind up going into that left-hand barrier, and on the exit going onto the right-hand barrier so often, because when the car starts to lose that contact grip and you've lost control, you're just basically on a ride and you can't save it.
Well, drivers that you and I know very well who have taken it in real life have said, yeah, it's tough. It's rough there. And iRacing's done a really good job, as we both know, of really replicating what this new chicane was like. And that was the big fear with a lot of these drivers going into this round, is the launch of these cars we get. We saw it in race 1 where cars were getting decent air. I would say probably 2-3 feet in the air that they would get, and the noses would really start to come up on these cars. So now that we're going to have a little bit lighter conditions, I'm taking a look at the air and the ambient and the track temperatures. It's 20 degrees Celsius ambient, 67 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius track temp, 69 degrees Fahrenheit. We're dealing with colder track conditions than we saw at the start of this race about an hour ago.
Not too great of a surprise. This is about what I would expect when you're running in November here in Florida. So going to be pretty darn cool, which can certainly change things in terms of how they need to get the tires up to temperature. Now, we've got the results there. Looks like, I think that was just the back end of the fields, who I guess will be the same as what they were for the end of the last race.
Yeah, well, the grid up here shortly as checker flag is out on this warm-up session, and cars will start to grid up on that back straightaway, and this is, I think that turn 1 is going to play a bigger role than we saw in race number 1. Here's your starting grid for race number 2. Again, we flipped 25, so Jesse Payne-Wilkins, who finished 25th, actually in a okay, this is up front alongside Adam Watson. Ben Gregory and Ben Altria make up row 2. Row 3, Ben Bettyworth and Jox Eva. Row 4, Joe Coffin and Taylor Lane, who had difficulties, but nonetheless will be up near the front. Icon Ida Linmo and Drew Fletcher make up row 5. Row 6, Elliot Roberts and Aiden Carter. Then you go into row 7. It's Howard Hassan and William Guthrie. Dickie Sinor and Michael Gray will be alongside each other. Then Phil Samways and Dan McCauley, your AM winner and AM points leader. Off to row 10, it's Dennis Grabowski and Arthur Thurtle. Harrison Crowther and Anders Mira make up row 11. Row 12, Ross McFarland and Matthias Pirinen. Looks like we have a little bit of technical difficulty with some of these cars. As you see, James Boomy is alongside Adam Hedgecock. Boomy, your points leader in the pro category. Then it's Patty Faulkner, Tommy Vettel, Paul Smith, and Michael Evdaka make up row 15. You go back to row 16, and it's John Roberts and Colin Sansom. Tom Griffiths and Nathan Healy alongside each other. Here's the big story. Alexander Davidson is going to try and make up a ton of ground from 35th spot. Jack Osborne rounds out your field in 37th spot. Field making their way into NASCAR 3 and 4. We're just about set for the final race of the season. Yeah, Tim, the time consumer grid been doing some car swaps, catching their announcers on their toes. You see Adam Watson and Jesse Payne-Wilkins warming up their tires for the final time this season. It's going to be very interesting to see how these 45 minutes will go. We'll see if some of these fast cars can make their way up to the front quickly, or if the draft is going to play a big role and try to shake things up just a little bit. We're looking for the Pro and the AM champions, as those points battles are nice and tight. Pace car pulls off. It's Payne-Wilkins and Watson on the front row, with Gregory and Altria sitting there on row 2. Green flag is out. Watson tucks in behind Payne-Wilkins, so that's a smart move as we start to see some single file action from 4th, but 5th on back, Joe. They're side by side. So far, so good through turn number 1.
Well, they're 4 wide in the middle of the pack, and somehow they're going to get away with it. Look at that melee behind them. I think only one car had a little bit of an issue down through turn 1, and we got to wait for turns 2 and 3 there through that little chicane, because last time we found out it was just a little bit tight as it's a battle for the lead.
Yeah, a little bit of a wiggle. There's Adam Watson. Oh, we got one car off, and we'll figure out who that is, but one spin. That's Payne-Wilkins spinning in front of the field. Somehow the whole field avoids Payne Wilkins, avoiding that Schmazel through the kink, but everybody making their way through. Couple of incidents so far. Adam Watson right now up at the front with Altria sitting in second, Ben Gregory in third. Little bit of battle for position as we see Carter going around the inside for ninth place. Grabowski and Samways also in position.
And I think Purinen also had a bit of a spin down at the Western Horseshoe. It has been craziness here at the start, which you tend to expect on a reverse grid for any series. Watson up at the front with Altria just behind him. I mean, this is beautiful for Altria.
Joe, that altitude-free Mustang that we saw was your pro points leader, James Boomey. He is now several spots behind the second place Davidson, so that could have major championship implications here as the field working their way around NASCAR 3 and 4. I'm looking, it's about 8 spots separating the two drivers. We'll do the math here shortly, but Watson, try to hold off your AM leader. I'll tell you what, he's not racing like an AM. He's racing like he's equal with Adam Watson around the tri-oval.
Yeah, they've got about 1.3 seconds over the next car back. They got to try their best to keep that distance, because as soon as they start to get in the slipstream, they'll easily catch up to those top two. But then we don't quite know who's got what pace in this group exactly, since they're going to be all jumbled up. Ooh, somebody facing the wrong way before Boom even got turned around.
Yeah, that was interesting. It looked like one of the full tilt Mercedes there that was involved in that incident. I'm going to try and do a quick points gathering as we see several cars off. Icon Ida Linmo, one of them is Grabowski, gets a meatball flag from 23rd.
That is a big shame for him. Joe Coffin also already with some sort of penalty. I think that may have been a pit entry thing. I see he is stopped in pit lane. Oh, no. 41 just absolutely getting knocked around like he is in a boxing ring.
And Boomey in and out of the pits, 1.2 seconds. So it looks like he got a faster pair. Davidson right now in 21st. We're trying to get this point situation aired out, but this might still, as long as Boomey can keep a clean nose, he will keep the lead as we have, looks like the 49 Grabowski with the spin, and yeah, just lots of mayhem. It's Altria now your overall leader, and Purinen also with the spin, looks like in one of the horseshoes. West Horseshoe usually at night is one of the more treacherous of the two, because you're coming off that kink so fast, you got to try and get it slowed down.
Exactly. It's a very difficult braking zone. Looks like Bennyworth here. I think maybe going to get a spot off of Gregory. No, switch that. Gregory going to get third place off of Bennyworth, while behind them, Roberts and Lane go wheel to wheel. Roberts will hold on to fifth. It is still very close in the top of the field as they try to sort out this reverse grid. Late move down to the inside by the Mercedes.
Yeah, and look at this. Carter tried to go around the outside, but not going to make anything happen as they work their way through the kink. And right now, the championship's still at play for James Boomey in spite of having the pit. 8 points now separates Boomey from Davidson for position. As Carter, once again, taking that Lamborghini on the outside, almost takes the two wheels off course, which is very tough to do through there, but is going to have the line through turn number 6, move Carter up to the top 5, and still your leader in Pro-Am. So if Carter really can't get the championship, might as well go out with the win.
A few cars taking better advantage of this reverse grid than others. I see Mura up 11 spots already, and McFarlane up 10, so they have been charging their way through in these early stages. Meanwhile, out down to the inside, the Lamborghini manages to sneak through. Aiden Carter gets himself up to P4.
So Roberts also trying to hold off Bennyworth. Bennyworth making hay while the iron's hot and trying to stay up at the front as part of that invert. But we've already seen some wild racing so far. Boomey up 1 spot, so now move him 9 points ahead of Davidson, is Davidson actually moving up to 19th. So that battle is really tightening up. Right now the ball is in Boomey's court for the championship. as we see Mira holding off Guthrie. So Mira, in spite of having a good start, it's going to be tough for Mira to try and get around because there are a lot of fast cars that are behind him as he goes, opens up the door just a little bit for Hassan.
I mean, this train is enormous. It starts with Gregory there in third place, and we have multiple cars going all the way down to, I'd say, about Evdaka there in 15th position, and it's not a straightforward train either. Look, they're constantly battling in this group. This is going to be a minefield to try and get through. And speaking of which, Dan McCauley had a spin last time by through the bus stop chicane. Meanwhile, Altria is leading this race overall. This could spell McCauley seeing the championship slip through his fingers.
Well, McCauley, it was just as tight as we take a look. McCauley falling back through the field, so now he's got to put his nose to the grindstone all the way back to 28th. Yeah, this might be championship over as Altria, your points leader so far now with getting up to the front. So pit strategy really gonna have to come into play.
He's gonna have to have a phenomenal second half of this race to make up for that loss of position. Mira, who I said was up 11, now he's up 14. He's given a nice little push to Guthrie. So again, I think this is why we're seeing some of these drivers make so many positions. You got to be smart in these situations. And I think Anders is playing this very well, not trying to pass at every moment, maybe hooking up with a car when he thinks there could be ground that can be made up instead.
Still watching this battle for position. Carter, you're a Pro-Am leader right now with trying to hold off the Hornets nest that's behind him. Roberts, Gregory, and Lane. Boomy with more problems through the Le Mans chicane, and oh, a little bit of a wiggle. That's a spin. Oh, that could have been so much worse for your Pro points leader. Just a slight tap of the wall, no harm, no foul, but it's going from bad to worse for the 28. Let's see if he can kind of get nose to the grindstone and get it all together as we see lots of grass being kicked up.
Yeah, and drivers nearly being shoved off the road there coming out of the Western Horseshoe. 3 wide up onto the banking with, it looks like, Gregory leading that group now. Lane and Guthrie slot in behind, but Guthrie is hung out to dry on the high side. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't. There we go. Now he pops down in that he gets the all clear.
Still watching this fantastic battle for position between Lane and Gregory. You also have Howard Hassan moving up to 9th place, dispatching of Ben Bennyworth. And a little bit of a spin. That's Anders Mira with a spin through the Le Mans chicane. Not sure if there's contact or what, but Mira back underway. Wow, talk about luck of the draw. There's Ross McFarlane as a result. Now in the top 10. Taylor Lane up to 5th. It's all coming hard and fast for these drivers, and we're not even 10 minutes into this race.
I shouldn't have said anything about how great of a job he was doing. Commentator's curse strikes once again. Meanwhile, in behind them, down into the braking. Oh, thought there was a little bit of contact in front of them. I think potentially between Lane and Guthrie. Once again, there's definitely contact there as a car goes spinning.
Yeah, that's why the full tilt Samways in 17th spot as Mira is into the pit. So and whatever he hit there, he has definitely copped some damage as we take a look at a replay, and he just loses it on his own. Oh, that was a hard hit. So lost a couple of corners there, and now he is into the pits. Does not look like he's going, well, yeah, looks like he did take a fast repair, possibly some fuel. Our buddy Paul Smith with a spin, and that is why we saw Samways with that spin. Paul Smith with a meatball, John Roberts with a meatball, and now we're starting to see that shuffling that we normally see around this time of an inverted race.
It was an expensive parking lot for a brief moment out of turn 1. A lot of cars that were really stranded by the side, and I think there was a secondary incident afterwards because I saw Paul Smith and a few other drivers that were facing the wrong way there out of the exit of the first corner. So this is kind of what we tend to expect when you swap the grid around like this. These races see a bit of chaos, and with this being literally the last round of the season, this is not what a number of drivers were looking forward to.
Get another points update. I'm probably going to go crazy doing this because there's so much swapping for position. Davidson in 15th, Mira up to, Boomy up to 30th now. So Boomy moving up through the field. That's helping his cause, as right now on points, it's 45 points. And yeah, Joe told me, you know what, Jeremy, it's probably best if you don't do that, because you know as well as I do, I'm always looking something up. So let me just sit back. Let's let the race play out just a little bit, as Ross McFarlane trying to watch this battle between Lane and Guthrie. They're really toe-to-toe going into the International Horseshoe, as Guthrie doing all he can to get around that Mercedes of Taylor Lane. Lane taking that defensive line through the International Horseshoe, but McFarlane currently second in class. Not gonna, why push? Why push the subject of A, you're not in the points battle, and B, let somebody else decide to wreck their equipment.
Right, and McFarlane up 16 from where he began. Again, positioned extremely well. Avdaka behind him, and 11th is up 19 right now. Amazing stuff out of him. But Davidson, who we've been kind of wondering how he's going to handle all this, is up 20 and into 15th. So great recovery on his part to try to make a fight at this all the way to the end of this race. So many moving parts. We've got 33 minutes left to go. So yeah, that's why I was kind of saying, let's wait until this settles a little bit so we get a picture, because this is going to be in constant flux here.
In limbo battle.
Little train of cars coming down towards turn 1. Which one of them is going to be deeper on the brakes, because there's definitely some opportunities. Davidson is actually going to stick his nose in, try to go underneath Fletcher, and I think that's going to work to get himself up into 14th spot. And whoa, as cars behind him have problems, Fletcher off, and Crowther goes for a spin. Thankfully, manages to avoid hitting anything.
This is not a good race for the altitude cars, and that's what that's great.
As we continue to watch this play out, remember we do have a pit stop to worry about as well. Some of these drivers that I think maybe are out of position, especially those very fast drivers towards the back, might be worth pitting early. Save yourself some time having to make some overtakes and see who you can undercut just taking that early pit stop. Avdaka is going to take a look down into the bus stop, but isn't able to get by Gregory this time. As we check back in with Davidson once again. Look at him all over the top of Bennyworth, and now past him as soon as they are out of the Le Mans chicane, and that's going to put him into P13 now. Thurtle, the next one up the road.
So he's doing his best to make the championship his, and I believe that he might try it, but then again, we still have to see what Boomy has up his sleeve for a pit stop here shortly, as yeah, once again, try to play defense going into turn 1. I wouldn't say this as a race control portion, Joe, but I would say this as a driver. Not sure I'd be making too many moves into one of the toughest corners in motorsport, and that is Daytona turn 1, because one just slight move and you're going to end up in that little center wall there.
Yeah, you got to be confident if you're going to make that pass. And speaking of confidence, we're going to go too wide through the kink here between Fletcher and Bennyworth. You got to give some space here. Car wiggling around as Fletcher was almost out of control, but he will somehow come away with that 14th position. Credit to both of them. That was impressive.
Great dancing here for position between Fletcher and Bennyworth. Bennyworth, of course, also one of those drivers who made a mid-season swap. You could make that within a certain window. Bennyworth going from Porsche to Aston, so one of those drivers that felt that they needed a quick change of platform, and really it's showing quite nicely as Bennyworth has looked pretty good so far this race. Again, Ben Ultra in 9/10 of a second ahead of Adam Watson. You see in 10th spot, that is Ben Gregory. holding off Hakan Ida Lindmo for position. So actually it's Abdaka, I should say, that's holding off Howard Hassan for position. There's Hakan Ida Lindmo trying all over the back of Ben Gregory in the 113. And we're entering that point where if you want to take a pit stop, you might want to think about it now.
Yeah, getting close to that halfway mark. Lindmo not making moves like he's interested in passing. Kind of ducks out to the outside, maybe get a little bit of clean air. Wow, very deep on the brakes, though. A cut back underneath. You can sometimes make those work at turn one, but not this time. So I take it back. I thought the 113 was being patient. He is not patient at all. This time he's going to dive down to the inside of the International Horseshoe.
I think it's just a lot of drivers, a little bit of wiggle there by Gregory, so Lindmo gets that 10th spot. I think it's just a lot of drivers trying to make a statement here in this final race of the season. We've seen it pay off for some, not so much for a lot of them, as it looks like Bennyworth trying to hold off a lot of great positions here for 11th on back.
Been trying to check out some of our lap times to see who is where and what their pace might mean for a potential win, charge from towards the back. Because yes, we have Ben Altry up in front, who is quick in his own right, but maybe not as quick as some of our front runners that are still pushing forward. Alex Davidson, he's 11 seconds behind the lead, and right now he's been running nearly a second a lap quicker. I think he's not out of it yet.
No, I think that there's still plenty of... wiggle. That is not good for Davidson as he tries to hold on to any sort of hope of taking back that pro championship. That could have been a race over incident once again. Race one, he had that incident where he backed into the safer barrier on what is effectively the inside of the chicane. Take a look at this replay, Joe. He just jumps it and he almost lost it, but who did lose it behind him was that 113 of Ben Gregory.
Yeah, and Ben is coming into pit lane now, so maybe he's choosing to get that early stop. Not happy being in the thick of the action there. Hassan, is going to be ahead of, or excuse me, behind now Davidson. He was briefly ahead of that Mustang, but again, slicing through the field. The 55 clearly motivated by that mistake in the penultimate round.
Yeah, Ben Gregory into the pits. Simnor and Osborne also into the pits. They've been in there for several laps after incidents, as Lindmo holding off Davidson, who just going off a rough math, which we both know how tough that is for me right now. Davidson basically in control of this pro championship so far, as he just sits there. He's going to pop out to the outside, take a look, and not going to make anything happen just yet. And of course, we're getting into that dangerous area of the Le Mans chicane. It's bit him once before, and he's hoping that he paid his penalty once and doesn't want to do it again.
Yeah, as far as Boomy goes, he's still sitting in 26, 49 seconds really behind the leader. Although he has been in pit lane, although it looks like it was a short stop. And that was 9 laps ago. So no, he hasn't made his pit stop. I thought maybe he had taken his stop and had maybe put himself back there. But speaking of which, I think Altria is no longer in the lead. Yeah, Watson is in the lead. But that's not due to a pit stop. He's made a straight pass.
Yeah, that was straight up with Altria sitting back there in second place. A big gap between he and Elliott Roberts for that position. Here's the pass for the lead. And yeah, just that McLaren too much for the Mustang as he goes high, wide, and handsome around into turn number 1 and says, thank you very much. I'm going to take that lead.
Absolutely. Maybe feeling like Ben wasn't up to the pace that he wanted. Decided he's going to lead, or that could have been a fuel saving measure. Adam could have been just kind of waiting patiently. Again, when that car in front with so much flat out portions of this lap, you can save so much fuel here and find yourself being massively quicker in the pit stop, jumping your competitor and finding an edge that way. So back up to the point potentially for the 291 as it's a close in from Altria, but he doesn't attempt to go by.
And that's just smart racing. You know, you're not necessarily racing somebody who is in your class, to say the least, as Altria lets Watson get away by just a little bit. You also have Aiden Carter sitting there in 4th place. So 3 of your top 4 drivers are all class leaders so far. As there's the Lamborghini of Carter. As Ross McFarland sitting there as well behind Carter. What a recovery drive for McFarland after having that incident in race 1, which basically cost him early on in the race. And now we're starting to see pit stops as Guthrie comes into the pits. Let's see who else decides to come in. That's about it right now.
Yeah, I only see Phil Samways entering in, so just a couple takers, which is about what we saw last race too, so not too shocking. Thurtle in 11th spot. He is hassling Hassan, stays to the inside down through the International Horseshoe and actually gets the traction off. He's a nose ahead.
Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. Now he's got to try and defend on the outside of the kink. Hassan has the nose going into the West Horseshoe as Thurtle going to dive deep to the inside. He's going to get that position. And, of course, got Harrison Crowther behind. So right now, Hassan the meat in this altitude battle as they work their way through turn number 6. Look at that Mustang. They'll close in on that Mercedes heading into the banking.
Then swinging their way towards the start-finish line once again. So number 30 leads ahead of Fletcher here. Harrison going to try his best to see whether or not he can attack on Hassan, but no dice coming down into the bus stop chicane. Thurtle gets a great run up ahead of them. He starts to pull away from the pair of them, but it looks like there's just a little bit of working together as Crowther gets up behind that spoiler and tries to push him forward. Altria back ahead of Watson now, and by 0.7 of a second. I wonder if Watson made a mistake.
One has to wonder. We'll see what happens as now we start to see some more of your front runners up into the pits. Evdaka's in. Carter's in. Let's see who else decides to answer the call here. And if you're near the back, why not throw caution to the wind and try and do some sort of alternate strategy? As Crowther made his way up to 9th because of that. Thurtle up to 8th. Hassan now down into that 10th spot. So lots of battling here in this bottom half of the top 10 as we see a replay. That's Ben Gregory spinning off in turn number 1, and just hold those brakes, and that's exactly what you need to do because that turn 1 is so blind.
Yeah, really glad that he was smart and patient there. Let that car go by, didn't try to pull out of the way and make himself a moving target. Then he was able to start to pull forward. Evdaka, by the way, pitted in and is actually already out, so he's got his done. I think he might be the highest driver to have taken and finished his official pit stop at this stage. So keep an eye on him as we get close to that 15-minute mark. Now, where did Davidson wind up? Oh, he's actually farther behind. Has something happened to Davidson? It was at only 5 seconds. He's now 8 seconds behind the leader.
Yeah, Davidson either slowing down to save fuel or may have had a slowdown penalty, but you did see that meatball flag being thrown on John Roberts. Hedgecock into the pits. I'm trying to find Boomy. He's up to 23rd, running a 43.5, so he's running pace of the leaders. Now it's a matter of seeing if Boomy's going to come in and pit for some strategy. You see 10th place and 11th place in Crowther and Fletcher. Hassan, I should say, is into the pits. And also Elliot Roberts having to serve a solid black. Alex Davidson is into the pits. Now, one of the most dangerous parts of this track is, of course, the pit exit because it's down to one lane. You see the 30 into this pit box. Crowther getting ready to answer the call. More drivers I would expect to be in the pits, but some may just stay out for track position.
Yeah, Roberts sped into pit lane. I was able to go back and check on that when he was well over the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So you serve that if you speed on the way in during your pit stop. So a nice long stop to rest and think about what he's done for the 78.
Davidson is out. Of course, Elliott Roberts serving the naughty, naughty flag as he sits there in pit road and thinks about what he does, and he feels shame. Boomy's into the pits as well, so Boomy takes the answer to call. Barrage is answering the call as well. Nathan Healy's in the pits. Bennyworth, Eva. So taking this opportunity to make something happen here with just 19 minutes left to go in this race. Already a lot of mayhem has happened here as Boomy going to get out in 16.8 seconds, but Ben Altria, your leader so far with Watson and McFarlane close in tail.
Now, I was looking at Anders Mira's pit stop, 8.9 seconds. I don't think that's going to be enough to get you to the end, considering everyone else's has been pretty consistent, somewhere between 14 to 18 seconds. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that one. That car might need to give us another pit stop before we get to the checkered flag. So leaders now taking their service. And does anybody stay out, or is this the end of the pit window? Because I'm seeing pretty much all of them in.
Well, remember, Joe, too, Mira did have that incident in the bus stop where he did spin and whack the wall. So probably a quick penalty and quick pit stop and deciding not to take on fuel, which almost a head scratcher, but I understand why sacrificing that extra pit stop for for track position. As your leader right now, Adam Watson and Ben Altria. McFarlane comes out into third place with Evdaka, and yeah, that just doesn't make any sense. But then again, we're not the ones in the rig right now. We're the ones with the microphone who are kind of crunching the numbers, thinking, no, you know what, that doesn't sound right, or that does sound right.
Yeah, the only way I could think is if he was too early for the pit window and he couldn't take any more fuel. But that was 9 laps ago. I'm not sure. That may have been too early now that I think about it. So that's what could have explained why he had a short pit stop. But yeah, at that point, you might as well take as much fuel as you can, even if it's not going to be enough, because it doesn't take any time to take that spare car. It's instant as soon as you hit your stall. If you've got it selected, the new car pops in. So it looks like Watson is going to be our leader now that the pit stops are done ahead of Altria. But McFarlane is back out only 3 seconds behind. So he's made a good work of this one, getting up to that third spot. And last lap, well, no, we don't have a full lap for him yet. So I was going to try and compare and see what it looks like now that it's going to be a straight fight to try and catch them.
Yeah, we'll get that full lap here shortly as they work their way through NASCAR 3 and 4. Altria all over the back of that McLaren. It's Mustang behind McLaren across the line. 0.05 seconds separates the two drivers, and we got another lap to go here as the outlap 2:13.6, 2:14.3 out of Watson and Altria coming into the International Horseshoe as they work their way out of turn number 2, setting up for turn number 3. Altria is just all over the back there as Aiden Carter makes his way. Mira having some issues as he's falling through the pack. There he is. He's spinning off of turn number 2.
He was facing backwards there at that little chicane, unfortunately. So I wonder if maybe the car spun or if there was some contact that put him in that position. Hard to tell from that angle. He may have had help.
Yeah, that looks like he might have had help. Let's take a look at this replay here. Yeah.
Ooh, it's still hard to tell, but I'm leaning towards maybe there was a tiny bit of contact. That's how the car usually wouldn't lose traction like that. Yep, there we go. That settles it. It was absolutely a touch. Whoa, that was close, though. Back up to our leaders. Altria behind by just about 1/10 of a second on Watson. Size him up. But they need to watch out for McFarlane behind. He is getting closer. It was at 3.5 seconds. It's down to 2.5 seconds now. And charging, Ross McFarlane has a realistic shot at rebounding and taking the win this time.
While Davidson falls back into 8th place, that's not something that he needs to do. Losing time as we speak. What is wrong with the 55?
Wonder if he got a slowdown penalty because he's coming out of NASCAR 4 right now.
He's lost his wing again. That's the second race in a row that Davidson has lost his wing. Was it coming off of the bus stop? Oh, a little bit of a wiggle. Now he's not going to have that downforce. Now it's just a matter of time before he has to answer to a mechanical black flag. Nothing has been shown. Mira's into the pits for his second pit stop. He spins! The Pro Championship has fallen on its head.
Unbelievable. He does not have a mechanical black flag, but he is going to take a tow anyways. And he'll be into pit lane, and it's already gone here. Now, that is bizarre. He must have had an incident before he even got to the bus stop.
Taking defeat from the jaws of victory, Davidson almost had the Pro Championship. Now James Boomey's going to see his place go up and see Davidson's go down. And the smile on that Mustang's driver is going to be nice and wide. Now, past couple race weekends, we've had a webcam for James Boomey. Let's see if we have it. I'd love to see it. As we're hearing, there might be some other problems as well.
Oh! That
wasn't a contact.
That was Mira. So he did not sneak through. I said it was close. It was closer than I thought it was going to be. The butterfly effect here today. Just absolutely outrageous set of circumstances.
Our producer Hugo with that extra view. I'm glad that he went back and looked at that because, oh my goodness. And the Christmas card list for James Boomey just grew by one. Watch this in slow motion. Oh, and it was just the wing that struck him. It wasn't anything else, Joe. It was the wing, and that's sometimes what happens. Oh.
Don't think that's what Mira really wants the Christmas card for, unfortunately. But, I've never seen something quite like that happen, even in the sim. And it had quite a huge knock-on effect. But this race is not over because it is down to 2 seconds now. 12 minutes left, we can call it. And McFarlane is continuing to reel in these two, which is probably why we're seeing them not fight super hard currently.
No, and that's not a surprise because they're out of class. And, of course, now this effectively is the only battle, the only championship battle. Altria has the AND title basically with one hand on it, trying to get that other one. He's got 11 and a half minutes to go. And it reminds me of a former IMS Radio Network announcer after the 1989 Indy 500 going, well, that's racing, I guess.
Meanwhile, Ben, maybe just a little bit of clean air on his nose down into turn one, making sure that he can see where he's going into there. Still not fighting Watson, waiting for that last lap to try and decide this one, just in case they can keep McFarlane back. But last time by, it was a 43.4 for Ross. Altria with a 43.8.
Whatever repairs Osborne tried to get in pit road, they didn't work because he has yet another black flag. Here comes Dan McCauley into 13th. So now his assault to try and take that Pro Championship back still underway. He came into this race 31 points ahead of Altria. Let's see if he can try and pass a couple more cars to assure that he gets the AM Championship, albeit just a little bit. One of our commenters here on the YouTube chat says, right now, excluding fastest lap and lowest incidents, Ben would be second, Dan would win by 1 point. So right now, the title is in Dan McCauley's grasp.
And you'll have to enlighten me for the classes. Are the points awarded to overall position, or is it just points within class?
There's been so much going on that I have lost my mind on that. Let me pull up the rules here, but go ahead. That's
all right,
overall, according to our producer.
Gotcha. Okay, so that is important then for McCauley to try and make as many passes as possible. And unfortunately for him, it's 5 seconds up to Hassan ahead of Wilkins. So this might be the last car that he can manage to get through, barring somebody having some issues. This time by, as we check back in with our top drivers, Altria with a 43.8, McFarlane 43.5. It continues to chip away. McFarlane could have an effect on this championship as well, since this is overall. If he passes Altria, that's another position down.
So this is basically the battle we're watching. If Altria can get up front, then the ball is in McCauley's court for the AM title. The Pro title effectively is decided, but it could take an incident with Boomy and Davidson getting back out on the course. Davidson still receiving repairs, and looks like his race actually might be over. The clock is stopped ticking on the pit stop for Alex Davidson. So all Boomy needs to do is just continue to log laps, and effectively the Pro title, which he thought slipped away from him as late as Mexico City, could be his.
Just an absolute roller coaster of emotions. And this two races, I should say, alone here at Daytona, because the start of this one, Boomy winding up all the way at the back of the fields, probably thought, oh, there it goes out of my fingers. Now suddenly back in it once again as, Altria must have gotten a slowdown. There goes McFarlane past. He's now up to P2. And I was about to mention before, I just noticed that Evdaka has been gaining just as quickly. He's not out of this either. There are multiple cars that could steal this win.
Yeah, and that was a slowdown because he got a 45, which now is taken off of timing. So Altria with a slowdown penalty. So Watson and McFarlane, two pro cars, 1 and 2. But Altria, he is not done yet. He's trying to catch up to the 127 of Ross McFarlane as they work their way around the International Horseshoe. So still a lot to play for in 7 minutes left of racing at the Daytona International Speedway. Oh, I told you race 2 was going to be an interesting one. I didn't realize how interesting it really was going to be. Watson's taking that McLaren up to the front. Here's Ben Bennyworth in trying to hold off Patty Faulkner, who's going high, wide, and handsome through the tri-oval. He might go, he's gonna go for 1. He might try for 2 going through turn number 1, but Ben Gregory shutting the door on any attempt for that.
Drivers fighting all the way to the end on this one. Love to see it. And it's going to be all the way to the end, I'm pretty sure, for those top spots, with Watson, McFarlane, and Altria now close enough that the slipstream should keep them together. But then Evdoka, I think, likely is going to join the fray before this is over. And I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else really that we've got some interesting stories going on with this. Not like we're shy of good stories to talk about in this race, but I mean, this thing has just, this has gone completely haywire in the last race with some of the incidents we've witnessed.
In the GT driver chat in the World Sim Racing Discord, Alexander Davidson conceding the fight to James Boomy, saying, good going, James. Enjoyed the fight this season, but we still have a lot of great battles here on the circuit. We have one championship battle to worry about and a race for the win, as well as Ross McFarlane, who really has flown under the radar all race long, trying to close in on Adam Watson. It's McLaren over Mustang as they work their way around the International Horseshoe through the kink. It's 0.2 of a second. So McFarlane just setting up for what could be the inevitable pass into the Le Mans chicane. Looks to the inside and really thinks better of it in spite of Watson, giving McFarlane a little bit of an opportunity to try and make something happen. Now they set up through turn 6. Really ill-advised unless you're up there. You know you can get the job done, but it's one of those positions. It's, oh, look at this. McFarlane going to the outside as Watson with a little bit of a wiggle there side by side. Move McFarlane to the lead for the time being, or was that gamesmanship by Watson to get the draft and to try and get that lead back going into the Le Mans chicane?
I tell you what, McFarlane may have just glanced the wall. I think he got away without any sort of damage from that one, but you got to be careful about that, because if you damage the aero on your car to track like this, that'll make trying to pass for the lead at the end all the more difficult. This time, McFarlane, your new leader, but he had to pass a pro for it in the form of Watson. If Daka, I think, still 2.2 seconds back. He's starting to run out of time. You can see him back there, that fourth car in line. He's not out of it, but he's got to hustle.
First and second in the Pro-Am class, also fifth and sixth on the track with Carter ahead of Guthrie. As, once again, here comes Watson to the outside. A lot of drivers trying that move going into turn one. It's a lot tougher than it seems, as once again, McFarlane gets back into that lead position.
Yeah, he's going to have to fight hard for this here at the end. It's one thing to run them down, but as we've seen, the slipstream keeps it close here. That's why you've got Ultra, who wasn't as fast, that is still in the hunt. He's still sitting behind them, but he's going to have to get closer if he wants to try and get that win back from them and potentially take the championship. Speaking of which, in that AM championship, McCauley is currently sitting in 12th and actually catching Hassan. I don't know if he's quick enough.
Well, it's a 43-0. Of course, Hassan looks like he either took a wheel off course or took a slowdown penalty of the 45-0. As here he goes to the inside, going through 1 and 2 as they work their way around. And oh, that was an interesting move. There's Tommy Vettel getting out of the way there. As a lot of great positioning happening near the back. That is something that we've seen as Elliott Roberts gets another black flag for this race.
Yeah, that was Tom Griffiths that Vidal was fighting with. Oh, and I think there it gets, yeah, that is Altria almost being passed by Evdaka, who's, excuse me, no, it's caught up to Watson. Something's happened to Watson, that he's fallen off the back of McFarlane. He is now much farther ahead. And Ultra is going to try and see if he can catch back up to our overall leader, nearly touching doors up into turn one. Some real bravery between the pair of them. In internet racing, that is always so much more precarious to get that close to your competitor at high speeds.
Jock Ziva up to 15th over Matthias Pirinen, and yeah, this battle for second place, it is absolutely enticing. It's given Evdaka a chance to close in as well. He's a little bit too far away to make something happen, but McFarlane has opened up a little bit of a bigger gap between he and Watson, so he doesn't have to worry about what's behind him. He's just loving that Watson and Altria are going neck and neck with each other. Take a look at Dan McCauley. He is 3 seconds behind Howard Hassan, so that battle might be all for naught. So Altria right now has destiny in his hands, as we will see the white flag this time by for Ross McFarlane, as we're just about that time.
Just one more to go. He's now 1.1 seconds ahead. That's about the cutoff. At more than a second behind, you're not going to have enough slipstream to try and gain on that car in front of you. So unless Watson has some incredible bouts of speed here at the end, or if he does see a mistake out of the 127, I don't think he's going to be able to catch him.
Pirinen gets ahead of Eva for that 15th spot once again. So Eva with a little bit of an issue, now 2.5 seconds behind Pirinen, but we're still watching this battle for second place as Ross McFarlane comes off an NASCAR turn number 4. He's going to look up and see Barney wave the white flag. 1 lap to go in this season of the World GT Championship. Now Michael Evdaka's joined in. Here comes Altria trying to go for one last pass into turn 1. Not going to make it happen. That's going to give Evdaka a chance, as we saw a little wiggle out of Altria. Look at the speed cam there in turn number 2. Evdaka is all over the back of Altria. He's close to that rear bumper through the International Horseshoe. Evdaka holding off just a little bit, trying to tuck in, stay within that slipstream, within the passing zone of Ben Altria. Not going to make it happen through the infield portion, but once he gets to turn 6, got to get a good exit there, as Adam Watson also trying to stave off some sort of attack. Look at Evdaka sawing on that wheel. He's lost a little bit of ground, but still plenty of time to make something happen. McFarlane has opened up a bigger gap, as now Watson and Altria try and race on their own, mano y mano, through NASCAR 1 and 2. Altria, your AM leader so far. around into third spot. He's all over the back of Watson. One big passing opportunity coming up here. It's a Le Mans chicane. Both are bobbing and weaving to try and get some sort of position to either stave off or make the attack. Nobody is going to make the pass through the Le Mans chicane for second place. So far, so good. Now they've got one more opportunity to make something happen, but Altria is going to slow down just a little bit, lose some crowd to the McLaren of Adam Watson. That's going to give Evdaka a chance to close in and possibly sweep the podium for the pro category. Ross McFarland holds a huge lead for the time being. Comes down, he's going to win the final race of the season. We're going to the grass for second and third place. Evdaka takes third place. Altria in fourth. Is it enough for the AM Championship?
Those three were separated by 0.07 of a second at the line. It was tight, and Evdaka was doing everything he could to push Altria up there, but he had to take evasive action as he didn't think that he had the room to go to the outside, or didn't want to either way. But man, what a finish, and what a run by McFarlane to hunt them down and take that lead right at the end. I mean, he left it right to the edge of what was possible and didn't give up on it. It took some real guts.
So we'll do a rough calculation of the standings again. Macaulay 31 points ahead of Altria, 1376 to 1345. And of course, we're going by overall position. But watch this battle here for position, as man, this was a fantastic run to the finish.
Yeah, you can see what I was talking about. He was pushing him to get that extra little bit of speed. And, you know, if he didn't have to make that little bobble, I think maybe a lift once he went in to the grass, I don't think Altria would have lost that position. I think he would have wound up in overall third instead. Or second, rather.
Okay. 1452 for Macaulay. As we do the math here, it may be Macaulay's by a handful of points. And indeed it is. 1452 to 1440 as I do my calculations. So Dan Macaulay wins unofficially the AM Championship by 12 points.
And in some championships, 12 points would sound like a lot, but you got to consider we're talking about nearly 2,000 points worth here. So that is a tiny, tiny percentage. That really came down to the wire.
And of course, we also have to look at your pro champion here. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's take a look at the results. Ross McFarland with a fantastic win here, 1.5 seconds over Adam Watson. Evdaka gets Ben Altria over the line, but that doesn't matter in the class standings. Ben Altria, your AM winner. Aiden Carter finishes off in fifth and is your Pro-Am winner for the final race of the season. William Guthrie, your Pro-Am champion. That's Harrison Crowther, Taylor Lane, Arthur Thurtle, and Haikon Ida Lindmo rounds out your top 10. As we look at 11th through 20th, it is Howard Hassan ahead of your provisional AM champion, Dan Macaulay. Phil Samways finishes ahead of your pole sitter, Jesse Payne Wilkins, with Matthias Piernan rounding out your top 15. Jox Eva, James Boomey, your pro champion, sits in 17th. 18th to Tommy Vettel, Tom Griffiths, and Ben Pennyworth rounding out your top 20. As you take a look at 21st, it's Lee Barrage, a much better showing that he had race number 1. Ben Gregory sits in 22nd, 23rd to Dennis Grabowski, Adam Hedgecock, Nathan Healy, and Patrick Faulkner round out your finishers on the lead lap. Then it's Colin Sansom, Paul Smith, and Joe Coffin 1 lap down. Anders Mira finishes off in 30th, 2 laps down. And you gotta go to Elliot Roberts, who had a couple of black flag penalties in 31st. John Roberts, Alexander Davidson. I'll tell you what, if he didn't have any bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all this race. Ends up in the pits in 33rd. Drew Fletcher, Michael Gray, Dickie Simnor, and Jack Osborne. Well, those are your race finishers. What a fantastic race. And let's go ahead and welcome in our pro champion. He thought it was over in Mexico City, but I'll tell you what, luck was on the side. James Boomey. Holy cow, James. You've, I gotta say, your heart was probably in your throat up until you saw Davidson falling through the order.
Yes, especially when it happened directly in front of me as well. It was in race one, obviously, where I lost the lead in the pits, and then I lost the lead in the pits, and then after that it was just absolutely crazy. I have no words to describe what happened this race, but I had no expectations of winning tonight. I really didn't. But I fought as hard as I could. I raced as smart as I can. And, I just want to take my hat off to Davidson. He's been really, really good this season. An absolute amazing challenger. I feel for him a lot. I've got to say that.
And I've had the opportunity to take a look at the chat that you've had over the past couple of weeks, and it seemed like you were on a roller coaster of emotions. You had problems the past couple of rounds, especially Mexico City, with that out early on in race number 2. And you thought, you know what, championship over, but it's Daytona. It's the wild card. What were your emotions going into this race, knowing how difficult this could be?
I mean, my teammates all backed me up. I was one of the grumpiest sods. I was one of the grumpiest people. I was thinking, oh, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Then I managed to get pole position with a little bit of help from Slipstream. And thankfully from there, I was just able to control the race. I can't even begin to explain how my emotions have flipped, how my emotions have been in the last, 2 hours. I think you can probably, I don't even think it's imaginable.
I've been there. I get it. And I've got to say, it's kind of a shame we didn't have your webcam on, because I would have loved to have seen the look of your face when you realize, oh, God, I got the Pro Championship now.
Yeah, it was, I was streaming on Twitch actually as well. Basically, I think all I saw in my Twitch chat was everyone going, just absolutely speechless, basically. Everyone was just absolutely speechless. I was completely speechless as well. It was so, oh my God. It was just completely unexpected, pretty much, it was, oh my gosh. But it happens, I've had incidents like this throughout the season as well. And unfortunately, that's the way that World GT unfortunately works sometimes as well. It takes a little, it takes some, it gives some. But as long as you have
so far watching and seeing you and Davidson go neck and neck, I think that's what iRacing's all about. Congratulations. Is there anybody you want to thank?
First of all, I've got to thank everyone in the team. Everyone's been, really excited for the series. Giving me feedback on setups and stuff like that as well. So massive shout out to the team, massive shout out to Loinsy, who's been spotting for me in some rounds as well. I gotta say thank you to all of our partners here. Massive shout out to 3M UK, who supply most of my race gear. And also all of our other partners, Lime Resource Center, Access to Inspiration, Sim Stickers, Simple Sim Products. Everyone has played a small part in this, basically, no matter how big or how small. And I'm just over the moon, basically, that everything's finally come together. Oh, I'm going to thank Mr. Hedge Photography as well, because he will crucify me if I didn't mention his name. But honestly, I'm just so thankful for everyone. I wouldn't be here without them. So massive shout out.
James, congratulations. We'll see you next season. Go get some rest and enjoy the holidays.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys as well. It's been an absolute pleasure having you broadcast this entire season as well. Thank you.
It's been fantastic watching your season, James Boomey, Altitude 3M Esports Mustang, your pro champion for this season.
I believe up next we've got our champion in the Pro-Ams, William Guthrie, ready to chat with us. William, obviously you had a lot easier time emotionally, I imagine, compared to what we saw with James there. You wrapped it up a race early in your case. So what did that do for your approach into this race? Because you had a pretty decent one there, finishing 6th.
Yeah. It's nice to wrap it up in the first race. Obviously, it meant I could sort of chill in the second race and just take her easy, which is just what I did. Obviously, I wanted to win. It was better knowing I got damaged on lap 1. It's nobody's fault, really. Just similar, just lost her on the curb and I had nowhere to go. And I obviously would have liked to win, but at the end of the day, like, to wrap it up in race 1, race 2 was just like, well, we're just here for fun, and sure, I'll help then if I can.
Well, knowing that, I mean, what's your overall feeling of this championship then? Because, I mean, just an excellent job, obviously extremely hotly contested in a series like this. So this is no mean feat to come out on top.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I sort of wrapped it up sort of back at Spain. I think Mike had a really bad round at Le Mans, and then he missed Spain, and I won 2 races, and then next week in Canada he had another mare, and I won one of the races and came second in the next, and then Mexico got 2 second places. So by that point it was like, pretty much, as long as I don't make a balls of it going into the final round, I sort of knew I had it. And again, going into the final round, I still put all the effort in, and I was leading, and then yeah, that way unfortunate incident lap 7 happened. It's one of those things. Like, I didn't really expect to be in championship in contention until like right at the end, and it was nice to sort of see after Spain that I had like 56 points in the lead, and I was like, right, I just need to get this gap and keep the gap or try and extend it if I can, and I'm just glad I was able to do it.
So we've heard, a lot of teasing about sending Macaulay up to pro next season, but now that you've won the championship, is that on the cards for you? Are you going to jump up a class?
I don't really know if it's entirely my decision or not. If Andy wants to put me in a pro, sure, I'll go up to pro, no bar, like. But here, Aiden, like, he's saying I should go to pro. Here, have you seen him in that Lambo? I think he's a candidate for pro as well. In fact, I think Dan's a candidate for pro as well. I think all 3 of us should go up. But I don't mind. Sure, it's just a bit of crack to me. And the day winning the championship's nice and all, but for me, it's the crack you have along the way. And like, sure, if I'm in pro, I'm in pro. If I'm not, I'm not. I'm still there talking rubbish for the lads on a Monday night. So, like, it doesn't really matter what class I'm in.
I love that approach to it. Definitely can tell you enjoy it. Congratulations, savor the victory, and hope to see you next season.
Oh, I'll keep her lit next season. Thank you.
William Guthrie, your champion in the Pro-Am. Up next, I think we have our Am champion as well, Dan Macaulay. That was another one that probably had all kinds of emotions going through your head, because Dan, my goodness, having to fight from the back and hope that your challenger has a bad race. I mean, what's going through your mind? Because I'm sure there was focus there, but surely you were thinking about the big picture the entire time.
To be honest, I kept having screenshots in my head of what the big picture was, but I essentially just went numb and tried to get in a rhythm. Ben's an incredible driver. When he got to the front, he wasn't going to make a mistake. It was just going to be whether or not the pros could catch him and shuffle him back that way. At Daytona, we've seen what happens. It separates. I kind of just had to do the best job I could. I knew when I caught the other full tilt guys as well, it was going to be near impossible to get round them, but fair play to those guys. They drove so fair all season. Absolutely incredible bunch of guys. So yeah, I just had to try and make a safe move, but also an affirmative one that would give me that 7-8 tenths to try and break the draft after.
We kind of noticed that it seemed like you were doing what you can to kind of charge through everybody. Was that your approach when you found yourself towards the back that way? Don't throw it all the way, but do everything you can to push, sort of ideal?
Yeah, that was it. Everyone knows the bus stop here, since they changed it, is an abomination, and it's kind of random if you can get through it. So it was trying to balance I need the speed to get through there, but also I'm going to lose the championship if I spin. Something which didn't play out very well when I spun on lap 2 or 3, whenever it was, behind some of the mid-pack cars. But yeah, as you say, it's just kind of push through, but be calculated, because you can throw it away in an instant.
No doubt. This track has a way of toying with everybody's emotions in that fashion. But speaking of toying with people, obviously with calls for you being bumped up a class, what's your reaction now that you've wrapped up the championship?
I mean, I think it's been incredibly close between us, and if I'm going to go, I think Ben should go as well. I feel like the three of us, me and Ben, both would have been Pro-Am this year, but with the way the AM category worked out last year, it was kind of hard to get a read on it. I think we've both proved that we've got Pro-Am speed, even Pro speed on some days. But we have more bad days than good days, which is part of the amateur nature of the class, and I think it's hard to say that the class needs a bit of a reconfigure when we went into the last round tied on points and it's only been separated by what looks like 11 points. But I'm sure if you put both of us in Pro-Am, we're going to be at the sharp end as well. The field in World GT this season is closer than I've ever seen before, and it's just been incredible to be a part of it.
I think that's a good shout, and I have to say I look forward to you and Ben carrying on the rivalry in the Pro-Am. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you, guys.
Dan McCauley, your champion in AM. Go ahead there, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was going to say that was Dan with another Dan for Pro moment. I had to rub that in. Let's welcome in our series administrator, Andy Scheel. And Andy, I've got to say, it's something that I mentioned to James Boomey. This is one of the races I look forward to each and every week because I know that I'm going to get some sort of great battle, and Daytona did not disappoint. Congratulations on an awesome season.
Thank you. It's always an exciting finish when we get to Daytona at the end of the calendar year.
We saw 2 championships come down to the wire. Has been crowned so far. Let's give your assessment on this season as we finally finished and everything's done and dusted.
Yeah, I think overall really happy with how the season's progressed. There's been some really good battles across the different classes, and to have 2 of the championships come down to the wire at the end of the season just shows how close the classifications are with the drivers. I think there was so much to play for tonight, and with it there being no drop rounds on the final round, it just makes it all to play for, and a lot of pressure then sits with the drivers to kind of hold it together and deliver if they can. The reverse grid for race 2 is a coin toss, as you know. It could have been very low, it could have been very high. We got a bit of a middle ground there, and that was always going to make things a little bit spicy for race 2, and it certainly showed.
It really did, especially with the drama that we had in race 1 with the pro lead swapping, and then if the race would have ended where it did before Davidson had his problem, it would have swapped as well. And of course, you had McCauley having an uphill battle trying to get that lead away from Altria. But either way, there was such great racing all around. The parity in this series has been nothing short of spectacular. I know in the chat here on YouTube, there's been a couple of people who are saying, I'd love to be a part of this series. To them, what do you say as we get ready for next season?
Yeah, we'd love to welcome anybody who'd like to come and participate. I anticipate some details for next season will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. We typically look to have a season start around the end of January, beginning of February. We have 3 classes. We have the team championships. It's great racing. It's a great community of drivers. We look to facilitate a professional level championship, and the guys who race here, we have a lot of repeat racers, so we look forward to welcome new faces as well. So if anybody wants to join or get involved or know a bit more, join our Discord, visit our website worldsimracing.co.uk, or drop me a DM if you're in the Discord already, if you want to know a few more details.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, one of the premier GT3 series here in iRacing. Any final thoughts into the season? Because also it seems like pretty aisles heavy. Is this open to anyone globally to race?
It certainly is. The only thing that's holding someone back is their time zone, and whether they need to get up really early in the morning or stay up really late at night. Obviously, the time zone is very much catered to UK and European racers, but we have drivers from all over the world who've historically competed. So, as long as you can make the races, then come and get involved. And come and try your hand at racing some of these guys who are absolutely going to put you through your paces in the GT3 cars.
Andy Shield, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for having us this season. Cannot wait for next season. I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Just a couple of things. Obviously, thanks guys for the broadcast this season. Absolutely top draw as always. Big thanks to Cube Controls, Freem, Next Level Racing for sponsoring this season. Obviously, congratulations to James, Dan, and Will on the respective championships this evening.
Andy Shield, thanks for joining us, and go get some rest. That was that was I think 10 races in one.
Indeed, it was. Have a good evening, guys.
All right, that was Andy Shield from the Series Championship. All right, Joe, this was your first race of the season. Thank you for joining us. First of all, I want to give your final thoughts as we close out this season.
I mean, if they're all like this, then sign me on. This is great stuff. An absolutely wild ride. In only 2 races, I don't think I've ever seen things flip around nearly as quickly and as much as the championships did in this series.
Well, that does it for this season. And Joe, thanks for coming in on short notice. Always great to have one of my favorite people to work alongside. Of course, Jake Sperry, Nathan Richards, the other voices you've heard throughout the season. I want to thank you guys for an epic season as well. It's been absolutely fantastic to cover this wonderful championship. Hugo Luis Coleman, of course, making it sound oh so good back in mission control. My name is Jeremy Scott. If you have a chance to race here in World Sim Racing, highly recommend you do so. The World GT Championship is one of the most forefront championships in iRacing. If you're good at GT3 racing, well, you're going to have a lot of fun here. Always remember to keep it pointed forward, keep it between the ditches, and always keep it greasy side down. We'll see you next time here on RaceSpot TV.